Sarah, do you want to share your screen from your end? Excellent. Okay, thank you for joining us this afternoon, everybody. It's great to see such a variety of different people from so many different organisations coming along to find out about our dementia services. At Age UK, Herefordshire and Worcestershire, we wanted to use Dementia Action Week as our platform to engage with all of the people who work with us in our sector. We know that many of you have been diverted to help with directly supporting the work within the pandemic over the last 12 months. So we thought this would be a really good opportunity, as hopefully we are now coming out of the other side of COVID, to remind you of the services that we have available within the community. There's such a wealth of knowledge and support within our voluntary and community sector. And we're joined today by Laura Hazel from Onside and our colleagues from Worcester and Malvern Hills, and Sonia, who will be giving you an overview of our dementia wellbeing service. And Colin will be explaining about the various training services that we can provide to you as well. Over the last month or so, we've been working on a directory of services, which we hope will be able to provide you with a bit of an overview of what's available to anybody who's got a diagnosis of dementia or is suffering with a memory impairment. And gathering all of that information has been really useful for us, just to re-engage with what's out there, and we hope you find it useful too. I have to say that it's been very last minute pulling everything together, so if there is things missing from it, just drop us a line and we'll aim to put out a slightly amended, updated version towards the end of the summer. If I could just go over a few housekeeping points before I hand over to the presenters. So this session is being recorded. We'll make it available after the session has finished today to anybody that's not been able to join us. We're using the webinar function, so all of your cameras are automatically off and your mics are on mute. But please do ask any questions as you go along using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And I'll gather them all together and post them to the particular person that your question is aimed at the end. So if you just pop the name of the person at the beginning of your question. If you have any technical issues, then please use the chat function, and Sarah, our IT guru, will do her very best to help you. We'll be sending out a survey to everybody at the end of the webinar today. So it'd be great if we could get your feedback on whether you found it useful. And finally, the directory of services will be circulated to everybody at the end of this session, and please feel free to pass that on to any of your colleagues. Okay, I think I'll hand over to Sonia, who will give you an overview of our dementia wellbeing service. Thanks, Sonia.
Hello everybody, my name's Sonia Murray and I am the service manager for the Living Well service at Age UK, Herefordshire and Worcestershire. And whilst I can't see you, I do know that I know some of you so from previous lives and roles, so hello. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Dementia Wellbeing Service. We've got some stats for you, which you probably find interesting about how we've managed through the pandemic. And then we've got a couple of case studies for you, one of which is a video, which Sarah will put on at the end. Okay, thank you. So first of all, the Dementia Wellbeing Service. It's funded by Herefordshire and Worcestershire CCG, which was previously, as most of you will know, Worcestershire CCG and Hereford separately, but they've merged. However, we only run the Dementia Wellbeing Service in Worcestershire. And we've been running the service since April 2019. And it's delivered in partnership with Onside Advocacy. So it's essentially in two parts. Onside, our partners, support those with young onset dementia, those under 65, whilst Age UK HW supports those over 65. However, all the referrals for the Dementia Wellbeing Service come into one place initially. We've got an integrated referral hub, which comes under the Living Well service at Age UK H&W. Those under 65 are then referred on to Onside whilst we take the others. And the reason for that integrated referral hub, as well as having the dementia wellbeing service integrated into the Living Well service, is so that there's one point of contact for those who want to access the dementia wellbeing service. Because I'm sure you'll appreciate if somebody's got a diagnosis or is awaiting a diagnosis and wants support, they've got a number of stresses already. So the last thing they want is when they come to a service to be told, oh, you have to wait, we'll have to refer you on to this person, that person, and we'll get back to you. So they all come into one point. And what we do at that point, as well as making an assessment around their dementia wellbeing needs, is we'll do an assessment around whether they need any other kind of help, such as help with benefits, independence at home. We look at whether they're a veteran or a carer for a veteran, so that they don't have to be passed from one person to another with a number of referrals going on. Like I said, they come into one point and they're allocated to one Living Well coordinator who will then take them through that journey, supporting them with whatever needs they've got. For those with young onset dementia, and I'm not going to steal my colleague's thunder, Laura, she'll probably explain a bit more about young mentors and dementia cafes, but they're provided by Onside. And the service in Worcestershire is available to people with a diagnosis of dementia or some form of memory loss who are registered with a Worcestershire GP, or for families and people caring for those living with dementia. So we support the whole family. Okay. And what do we do? Well, what we do is provide support, information and guidance in a number of ways. What we don't do is provide any personal care. We've got a number of specialist coordinators who've had not only training in supporting those with dementia and their carers, but as I mentioned, we're trying to provide a holistic service, so they're equally well trained in information advice, supporting people who wish to stay independent at home, and veterans and carers, since we've incorporated a number of services into the Living Well service. It's available when they need it, so they can access it anytime they want, within the hours that we're open, of course, and we'll help them access a range of services, support and activities across Worcestershire, and you're going to be sent a directory of services and support and activity providers following this webinar, which will explain who they are. We do also, through some of our specialist advisors, link with more specialist agencies, for example, SAFA or the Royal British Legion for those who are veterans and their carers, or the criminal justice system, because some of our clients, for one reason or another, are engaged with the criminal justice system. And what we do from the initial referral, the idea is that we will give support for up to 12 months on an ongoing basis. If we feel that people need support for longer than 12 months, then it may well be that we need to pass them on to other agencies. But what we do along that journey is we'll do a review of their needs at defined intervals, say 30 days, 90 days, 280 days. Although obviously, depending on people's needs, they can get in touch with us in between those times, or we'll contact those in between the times. It depends on their individual needs. And at the moment, we're looking at impact evaluation development so that we can see directly the impact that the support we're giving is having on our clients, rather than just a survey about whether they thought our survey was good, etc. We want to know whether it actually made a difference to their general health and well-being. Okay, Sarah, thank you. I feel important saying thank you, Sarah. A few facts and figures for you now. The gender split of clients coming into our service from January to March 2021, as you can see, was predominantly female, although there's not that much of a split there. And that reflects the national picture, which suggests that more women are affected by dementia than men. The ratio is about 2 to 1. A number of reasons for that, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. Not only do females tend to live longer, so have a greater chance of getting long-term illness of disease, but hormones, etc., probably play a factor. And we've also divided it up so you can see where the referrals come from for our clients. There's a fairly even split across Worcestershire there. The lowest bits that you can see there are clients from Birmingham, sort of on the borders, and Herefordshire on the borders there. But Wyre Forest sticks out as a place where we got a lot of referrals from, and I'm not sure that we really know the answer for that at the moment. So we'll be looking at that in more detail. Next one, Sarah, please. This shows you the referrals into the dementia service from April 2019 to March this year. And as expected, you can see a dip whilst we were going through the pandemic, but we had a fairly good referral rate. That big dip reflects what happened during the time that we were in lockdown, not able to access services. There were no scans going on. There were very few referrals going on. It is starting to pick up again now, as you can see, and we are expecting, as people feel more confident perhaps and are able to see their GP, that those referrals will go up as GPs start to refer back into the service and health services can clear their backlogs. Okay, thank you, Sarah. I think this next slide is just to demonstrate all the services that we have contact with, that we can put our clients in touch with for help, guidance and support, as well as ourselves. And most of them will be listed in the directory that you'll get at the end of this webinar. Thank you. Now, just a quick case study for you, and this is hopefully to demonstrate the kind of holistic service that we try to give our clients. This client had already been diagnosed with dementia, as well as a number of other health conditions. Lived with a spouse and 2 children who, like a lot of our clients, their children unfortunately couldn't offer a huge amount of support due to their own personal circumstances, which is fine. The spouse had a few friends that lived locally, and they occasionally met them for coffee. Now, the client had been put in touch with the service following diagnosis, but hadn't required a lot of support and guidance at that point. However, it meant that they were aware of our service, and when the circumstances changed, that client could then refer himself into what is now the new Dementia Wellbeing Service. Now, the reason he initially contacted us was that he was having concerns about dealing with written correspondence. He was struggling to understand and deal with letters himself, and that was causing him some stress and anxiety, which was actually exacerbating the other symptoms of his dementia and other health conditions. Thank you, Sarah. So once he referred himself in and explained why he was contacting us, not only could we deal with that, but because we've got this joined up holistic service now, we did a comprehensive assessment of all his needs, not just what his needs in relation to his dementia. And we found a lot of issues there that we could help and support him and his spouse with. We found out he was also anxious about a rent reassessment that was going on and how he was going to be able to afford that. Not only were there correspondence issues that we could help with, we could support him with writing letters for him. But we also managed to do an assessment around any aids or equipment that he might find useful, and were able to refer him into the Dementia Dwelling Grant Service. He ended up with things like an additional whiteboard, dementia clock, which he found very useful. We also looked at expanding the opportunities for him to socialise, as the lack of socialisation that he was encountering was beginning to impact on his speech, not interacting with people, only his spouse. And we were also able to give him some benefit advice to increase his income, which again would allay some of his fears about his rent reassessment if his rent was to go up. Okay, thank you, Sarah. So the outcomes, whilst he came to us with one issue, which was dealing with his correspondence, we're actually able to help him with a lot of issues, as you can see we've highlighted there. We were able to intervene with relevant parties and improve the client's understanding of the situation, make the phone calls that he couldn't make and help to minimise the anxiety there. Refer the client to the Access Centre for Social Care, so further support with issues about managing correspondence on an ongoing basis. We got him some DDG items. We put them in touch with a companion line and befriending opportunities for both him and his spouse. And we were able to give him information about attendance allowance, which he wasn't necessarily entitled to at the time, but knew that should his condition change, then he would be eligible to apply for that. Thank you, Sarah. Just a brief resume of the support we've been continuing to give clients during the pandemic. Like a lot of you, our service was severely restricted. We were unable to make home visits. However, what we did was, for all the clients that we had on our books, we did wellbeing calls, particularly at the beginning, to make sure people felt safe and in touch with the communities around them, trying to answer queries that they had, put them in touch with services that could help them with shopping, etc. And whilst we've petered out a lot of the wellbeing calls, we kept the continued support via telephone calls and video calls, Zoom links where we could. And as we come out of the pandemic, we're now re-establishing the networks and partnerships that we had. We've got some of our partners here today, but things like we belong to the Worcestershire Dementia Action Alliance, which is now getting up and running, putting partners back in touch again. We're all finding out what we're doing, how our services have changed. And as I say, we're developing a dementia support directory, which hopefully will give you information about what's there and what is no longer there, and what wasn't there before and is now, because it's changed and will no doubt continue to change, hopefully the better, as we come out the other end of the pandemic. So now we're going to show you a video which will hopefully give you a visible demonstration of what we do.
My name is Malcolm and this is my wife Peggy. We've been married 59 years. To ease us into this career of dementia, which was done very nicely, Peggy had to go to meetings at Kidderminster Hospital, and we were then told about age concern, and that's how we found out about it. And we've had a lot of support. Our lives turned around. I mean, it's like another thing I always say about health. The silver lining in any ill health is the nice people you meet on the trip. You know, I've had very good health, but these last 10 years I've had some strange little things happen to me, and I've met a lot of medical staff, and they've all been nice. And so, like yourselves, it's the nice people that turn up. Without any shadow of a doubt, you've made things phenomenally easier. Luckily, one of the pharmacist assistant, a nice lady, she mentioned what as dementia you're entitled to, so I'd started this. But again, these forms are so long and complicated, and if I needed any advice, like we did also the power of attorney, I could do that as well. And I always knew that I could turn to Carol or Age Concern and get any help I wanted, and I did. And it made it very easy. And I just hope it keeps on going like that.
No, it's served me because, you know, you're probably speaking to a few people,
Yeah.
you know, but there's always one that, you know, you can
talk to.
yes, and it's lovely when it does, you know.
The only way they could ever improve the service, as far as I'm concerned, is have more people like you, so they can see more people like us.
Yeah.
So if you've got any clients you want to refer to us, like I say, we've got one contact point, the number of which is on your screen now, or you can contact us by email, email address there, or there is a electronic form on our website, and you know, we're perfectly happy to take phone calls, email queries, etc. from any of your clients who want to get in touch with us themselves. Okay, thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sonia. We're going to pass over now to Colin, who's going to give you some information about the training services that we can offer through Age UK, Herefordshire and Worcestershire. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jude. Just getting this up on screen now. Okay, so hello everybody, my name is Colin Hanley. I'm the training coordinator at Age UK, Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and this is a short presentation about who we are as a service and what we deliver. So who we are, we're a not-for-profit. We deliver all aspects of health and social care training across Herefordshire and Worcestershire. Trainers on the right-hand side there are all professionally qualified with vast experience in health and social care. Our presentations are updated regularly in line with national and local legislation and policies. Our sessions are adapted to suit each audience that attends and to address their specific work needs. And the courses that we run are fun and interactive because we keep small numbers, so we're able to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to share best practice and share their experiences. So what do? We deliver as a service dementia training to our charity staff and to our volunteers. We deliver to care workers in nursing and residential homes, domiciliary and support agencies, to GP surgeries and dental practices. And we also deliver directly to informal carers, family carers and members of the public. And we may do that through meeting centres or in partnership with other organisations represented here today or with the Worcestershire Association of Carers. Our courses, we've got 9 courses that I want to briefly talk about today. Dementia and how to avoid it. So this is for the general public and includes the latest evidence and research on avoiding the condition. We have dementia training for the newly diagnosed. This is for carers and people living with dementia, covering changes that may be made to someone's family home, including signs, prompts, thinking about contrasting colours and patterns. This course also looks at the importance of self-care for family carers. As you know, which I'm sure you're all probably aware, 40% of informal carers live with depression because of the stress associated with the support that they have to offer for you, for people living with dementia. What I want to do now is just share with you 3 slides taken from this course, just to give you a sample, an example of the practical skills training that we can provide. So what we've got in front of you, what I'm going to show you now is a list. And although this isn't interactive, you can still all take part. I can't hear you or see you, but you can still take part in this. What I want you to do is to read and remember this list. Butter, bananas, cheese, apples, milk, noodles, rice, chicken, and oranges. Okay, hold that in your mind. Remember all those things. How many can you remember? Now, if you wrote them down, you've probably got a good chance of remembering some of them. If you didn't write them down, but you have good short-term memory skills, then you might remember a few more. But I'm going to guess about no more than 4 or 5 items off that list. If you're supporting someone with young onset or newly diagnosed dementia, then encouraging structure and order through lists and signs and visual clues can help to improve memory and maintain a feeling of control. So, for example, in the course, we would talk about that if we rearrange this list of groceries into groups, it suddenly becomes a lot easier to remember them. The fruit, well, it was pears, apples, and bananas. The meat, oh yeah, that was chicken and mince. Tins, oh, peas and soup. And the dairy products were milk and cheese. Additionally, if we had pictures as visual clues, maybe through, if you're using an app on a phone or an iPad, you can add pictures to these lists, and that gives you something easier to remember. This could be because the reading part of the brain and memory may be affected, whilst the visual part of the brain may still be working effectively. Okay, back to our list of courses. We also deliver dementia, the continuing journey, so newly diagnosed and then the continuing journey for carers and people living with dementia. This will help people to understand the importance of new communication skills, techniques for life skills, including assisting someone to wash or to choose clothes to wear. And this course also now includes end-of-life care and end-of-life care planning. Dementia and younger onset. This training is about supporting families, is about supporting the people who support families, I should say, and gives advice about work and finances. I also want to mention here that all of our dementia courses include advice about LGBT+ issues and about care in later life. Dementia awareness. This is one of our main courses that we deliver to professional care workers in homes, in the community, in meeting centres, etc. And we've also had a lot of success with dementia advice drop-in sessions, so less formal sessions where people can drop in to ask questions they have. And we've run this successfully with partners across Herefordshire and Worcestershire, but again, going back to the Worcestershire Association of Carers. Dementia and activity coordinators. These are full-day, highly interactive sessions to share all the latest arts and crafts being delivered in care environments up and down the country. A lot of fun with those days. And then another new course, Dementia and the Arts. This is a new course which we've been successfully delivering to professional artists in any field. So it could be artists, fine artists, it could be photographers, musicians, actors, etc. Anyone who's supporting individuals living with dementia. And this course links in particularly with Age UK's Age of Creativity, which is running this month. And finally, the Dementia Practical Skills Level 2 course is a planned accredited course run through us as a centre for the Open College Network. And this gives care workers and other health and social care professionals the practical skills of supporting an individual living with the activities of daily living, such as getting dressed, helping to brush their teeth, assisting to eat, etc. Now, what I'm going to do is share my screen and show you a short video as an example of what we can do in that particular course. Let me just do that again. Share sound. Okay, on your screen now, hopefully you can see the start of a video. This is just an example of some of the techniques that we can train staff in, or members of the public in practical skills dementia training. I don't have a video of our trainers delivering the segment of the course, so I'm going to show you a clip from the Duke University School of Nursing. Just goes on for 1 minute, so just bear with. There we go.
The underhand technique seems to work the best for someone who's lost skill finger ability, or they don't seem to understand what to do with their utensils. At this point, we can use the underhand technique, and we start by getting into the underhand shake position. What this frees up for me are my skill fingers, and that's the part that I'm going to do for them. This technique provides a new additional cue, a motor cue, so that we're really maximizing the cues that we're providing with this technique. One of the first modifications we can do with the underhand technique is if the person only has partial range of motion. In this case, we need to load the fork or the spoon for them, because that's the part that they can no longer do. So if a person has very little range of motion, you may need to put their food item into a different container and get very close to them so that they don't have to move as far to participate in the act of eating. So even with very limited range of motion, the underhand still provides the cues that might help them to understand that it's time to eat. The underhand technique seems to...
And one of the interesting things there that I learned was that in studying these new practical techniques is that someone living with dementia can lose the ability to use their thumb and first two fingers as they're attached to the skills part of the brain, whereas the last two fingers are strength fingers and strength-ready dementias. So you can learn something new every day, even if you've been working in health and social care for a long period of time. So some useful techniques and powerful support for people in our care. If you want to know more about our service, please visit our website on the screen there. If you want to book tickets, you will also be able to do that, but you'd have to be quick because, as I say, we run very small courses with small numbers of people, and all of our courses are available through our Eventbrite website. Okay, and that concludes the presentation from the United Kingdom delegation.
That's great, thank you. Thanks, Colin, that's really interesting. Now we're going to be joined by Laura Hazel from Onside Advocacy, who's going to talk to us about young onset dementia and the services that they can provide. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Jude. Hello, everybody. As Colin says, I can't see you, but hopefully you can see the presentation and maybe you can see me, I don't know. I'm Laura Hazel from Onside Advocacy, and I'm with the Young Onset Dementia Service, which provides support for people with young onset dementia. The other services around the dementia services provided by Onside are the dementia cafes, and we also have an Eveson Trust service which takes people out for days out. So the service with Onside has been going for over 10 years. It's a well-established service with a team of very experienced people who have also been with Onside for over 10 years. And the range of support that's provided by the mentor support workers is very similar to what Sonia described. So I won't go into too much detail, but essentially people that are diagnosed with young onset dementia have slightly different issues than older people when it affects them at an older age. And very often they're caught out in the middle of their lives, they may be working and so on and so forth. So the support that's provided is around social engagement as much as anything else. The information and advice is often provided for them by their families, but the team will provide them with information and advice around all the things that Sonia described: benefits, housing issues, debt problems, how to access services, signposting, and all that sort of thing. We work in partnership with a range of other agencies. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Sarah? The partnership working is really helping the team to support the people as well. So it's a range of support, advice, information, guidance, as well as working heavily with the family and other carers. I think we can't stress that too much. The commissioners that commissioned this service wanted us to hone in on the fact that if families and carers are given support as well, that really helps the quality of life for the person living with dementia. Can we move on, Sarah, to the next slide? So what defines somebody with young onset dementia? What makes them eligible for this service? Usually people are diagnosed under the age of 65. So we might have clients who are in their 50s, and there are instances of people being even younger than that. However, the main cohort of our client group currently is over 65, but they will have had a diagnosis under 65. And also, we don't expect everybody to have a formal diagnosis, as long as it's fairly clear that there's memory loss and there are symptoms of dementia that have been ongoing for some time, usually several years. We're happy to accept them into the service. The service is divided into two sections. We have a young onset dementia service, which is free of charge for up to a period of 6 months. And that's client-led. An assessment is made of what the client wants and how the client can benefit from the service. But after the 6 months, that service can continue. It is ongoing. There isn't an end point, but it is a paid-for service. What we do is we make sure that people are aware that the service can continue. They've often built up a good, strong relationship with the member, the support worker, by that time. And if they do want to continue, we will help them access benefits or other financing to be able to help them to continue with that support on an ongoing basis. Can you move on, Sarah, please? The Connected Together is the Eveson Trust service, and that's a sort of icing on top of the cake, if you like. It's a small amount of money that's been donated year on year for the past few years, but it does allow the support team to take people who particularly want to have extra days out and go the extra mile for visits that would be longer than their usual sort of support, let's say their support program that's over the week or a couple of times a month. And, you know, it's quite varied. And again, it's client-led, and very often it's weather-led. And of course, with COVID, it's been COVID-led. But throughout COVID, we have been able to provide an element of service all the way through. I think there was only one period just after Christmas when it was a complete lockdown that we weren't able to provide this service. But much of it has been client-led as well, and people haven't really wanted to risk coming outside. But you can see that, you know, we run visits to stately homes, country parks and gardens, open spaces, river walks, tea rooms, picnics, and any special events, particularly in the summer, that are being run. And it's particularly enjoyed by not only the service users, but their families as well, who sometimes go along, and there's like a little party of people. So that's the Connected Together service. Can we move on, Sarah? So the other large part of the dementia service for Onside is the dementia cafes. And you can see here that they're run across Worcestershire. They're run once a month. They're usually run for at least 2 hours, but by the time they've been set up and closed down, they go on for longer than that. Excuse me. The purpose of the cafes is to provide social engagement opportunities. They run for either coffee time, lunchtime or tea time, depending. And there is one, the Owls Kidderminster Cafe does run for the early evening. And the planning behind the cafes, and again, it's from the Commissioner's perspective that we're asked to do this for the benefit of support for people suffering with dementia, is not only to provide them with a social engagement opportunity, but to provide throughout the year at every cafe some talks around health or some information, some therapeutic engagements. And there might be music, there might be crafts, there might be therapy. But for each cafe, the cafe coordinator team provides some activity which is targeted around either support, information, advice or guidance. And again, we look to the service users to say to us, you know, we'd like that, we'd like this. At Christmas, it was quite interesting. We were able to run a couple of cafes and none of them have been hugely well attended. The numbers normally are in excess of 20, but we've had, you know, in the tens of people coming. So at Christmas, people were sort of sharing the information about how they were going to deal with Christmas without their families, how many people could access their families if they were very local, what they were going to do instead, you know, using their iPods and so on. And one of the most interesting conversations I was listening to was who'd had their vaccinations and who was expecting to have the next vaccination. So it was a good demonstration really of peer support, that people were experiencing the same things, but being able to understand that it was something that was affecting everybody. Because one of the biggest impacts I think that we've seen with people is that they've been anxious and concerned about leaving their homes. So it was a good opportunity for people to come out. The next slide, Sarah, please. So I've spoken to you about what the eligibility criteria for the service is. And we've recently been underpinning the referral processes, as Sonia said. We also have a single point of access, and we're working in partnership with Age UK. It's a joint contract, so our referral forms are shared. Any referrals can be made either directly to the Onside Access Hub or to the Age UK Access Hub, and it will all come through to either myself or colleagues. You can request an a referral form from the hub, and it can be emailed to you or posted to you, or whatever way is most convenient. The process then is that the referral person has a phone call from me or one of the team, and we discuss what the issues are. The referral form gives an opportunity to explain why the person has been referred to the service, what sort of thing they're looking for. Sometimes people just want social engagement or interaction. Sometimes people want support with housing issues or financial issues. And there's a particular concern that people have legal arrangements sorted out, that kind of thing. And once that triage process is done over the phone, one of the mental support workers will do a home visit and go through a support plan assessment so that we have a good idea of what that person's needs are. Onside has several other services. Social prescribing is one, mental health services, and so on. So we work across teams as well where we think it's appropriate. Through that support planning assessment, we'll also be in touch with other agencies so that there is a wraparound support plan for the person. And it's also important to say again, and I can't reiterate too much, that supporting the person only works when we support the families and carers as well. So they're equally important. When we're doing the referral all the way through, we're very aware that the family is going through a very difficult time. Like the chap said in Sonia's video, they're having to come to terms with a diagnosis. They're having to come to terms with not only immediate changes in lifestyle if somebody can no longer work, but they're also beginning to come to terms that they're going to have to live with this for some time. And it's our role to be able to not just signpost people, but be able to help them plan the way ahead so that the life that they're living is positive rather than negative. The service also has a reporting regime, and it's fairly person-centred in as much as we're looking at outcomes to see how the service has benefited the person. And sometimes that's quite difficult to estimate with somebody living with dementia because, you know, things move very slowly. Very small increments of progression or maintenance of well-being or social engagement. They're very hard to monitor, if you like, for the purposes of performance reporting. So we rely really heavily on the expert team that we have to be able to assess how that support benefits the person. We'll move on to the next slide. So what have we been doing over the last year, really? It hasn't been easy for people living in the community with dementia. So we didn't expect it to be easy for us. The teams have, so the cafe coordinator team and the mentor support team, they've maintained a round of wellbeing calls all the time. That's never stopped. So the contact with the people has always been maintained. They've always felt that they've been cared for and supported as far as we're able, alongside their families, of course. The people who would attend the cafes regularly, they've been virtually knocking our door down over the last week and a half, asking us when the cafes are going to be open again, and gradually we've got about 6 or 7 that we're hoping to run over the next two or 3 months. But sometimes the venue owners are still concerned about managing the risk, so not all of the cafes have been opened. So we have managed to be able to run 2 or 3 of the cafes, even in the worst of the lockdown. Again, the attendance wasn't great, but the opportunity was there for people to come. And so we were able to provide that ongoing support. So for the future, we realised that with Age UK, we need to promote the services better. We need to be able to ensure that people in the community, not necessarily just through GPs and the early intervention services, but people in the communities understand where they can go if they feel that there is an issue, you know, just to have a chat about whether or not dementia might be affecting a family member. So we're working, at the moment, we're doing promotion for the cafes because, you know, we've just opened a new cafe in Upton-on-Severn last week. So we want to get the information out there, particularly as the summer's coming. But by September, before the winter kicks in, we want to make sure that we're getting as many referrals from GPs and the other agencies that come into contact with people with dementia. But we also want to make sure that people in the community are aware of what the pathways are to managing a family member who may be living with dementia. And I suppose the last thing really just occurs to me to say about that is that people with young onset dementia and older people with dementia essentially are looking for the same things. We're all human beings. They want quality of life. They want to feel safe. They want to be listened to. And I think these services are, as the gentleman said in the video, these services really are appreciated. So we're working now on introducing a new post, which at the moment we're calling a transition worker, although that name isn't set in stone yet, who will be able to help people who are anxious reconnect within the community as COVID recedes and everybody becomes vaccinated. And that will be done by maximising the use of information technology, assistive technology, as Colin referred to, in the home. But we're working on being able to go out into the community to help people reconnect and access information technology support tools as much as is possible. So those are our plans for the future: promotion and engagement with IT. And that's it from me. Thank you everybody for listening.
That's great, thank you. Thanks, Laura. Just before I hand over to Lynn, just wanted to remind you all, if you do have any questions for any of our speakers this afternoon, just pop your question in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and we'll pick them all up at the end. Thanks. Over to you, Lynn.
Okay, thank you, Jude. I'm aware maybe that we're running out of time. Yeah, so I'll try and do it as quick as possible. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lynn Mole. I'm Head of Services for Age UK Worcester and Malvern Hills, which is sort of a new branch of Age, well, not a new branch, a merge of two Age UKs together, which were Worcester City and Malvern Hills and District. So that's probably why you haven't seen our name about at the moment. Jude's asked me today to talk about one of our dementia projects, which you can see from the slide is called the Dementia Community Support Service, although we do have other dementia services. Probably February last year, the CEO and myself were looking at what we wanted to do in the future, what we thought there was a need for within Age UK, where we could put some more members of staff in and see what we could do. And we thought dementia was something that there was a need definitely for. And then, of course, we had lockdown and we had COVID, and one thing led to another and everything was put on hold. But the one thing that we did get from that was that this was the kind of service that was desperately needed, whether in COVID, because we weren't necessarily able to run it, but there was certainly a need for it within the area. Could you turn next slide? Thank you. Okay, so what is dementia community support? We find that living with dementia can bring many challenges, including feeling loneliness and isolation. We've all come across clients with that. Anybody involved with dementia, you can see these kind of things. And social contact is very important to these people. but a dementia diagnosis can often be tremendously isolating experience, and this is what we wanted to try and get round. Age UK Worcester and Malvern Hills, out there, we understand the importance of companionship and maintaining links with the outside world, which is why, in partnership with other organisations, we were offering the Dementia Community Support Service, which is actually a mouthful to say, I'm sorry. Could we have the next slide? Thank you. As you can see, these are the Age UKs that have merged to provide this service. It is run across Herefordshire and Worcestershire, but Herefordshire is done by Dementia Matters. We've had a small amount of money from the NHS, which is going towards us running it. So the shared service, as I said, is across Herefordshire and Worcestershire, delivered by Dementia Matters here in Herefordshire, Age UK Worcester and Malvern Hills, and Age UK Bromsgrove, Redditch and Wyre Forest cover the Worcestershire one. The idea of the service is to connect people living with dementia with one of our volunteers, offering friendship, understanding, as well as providing the opportunity to carry on doing things that they enjoy, either in the community or at home. Obviously, COVID has made this very, very difficult. At the beginning of probably September, we had about 30 volunteers all ready to be trained to do this service. Unfortunately, we weren't quite sure whether it would go down well in PPE to start with. A lot of the clients were frightened of having people in. A lot of the volunteers were frightened to go in. So we've tried to do telephone and then, sort of enlarge on that. So the service will be eligible for anyone suspected or with a confirmed diagnosis of dementia or mild cognitive impairment, and their families or carers are those who are registered. This is the only criteria, that they're only registered with one of the doctors in Worcestershire and Herefordshire. If we have the next slide, please. Practical details, we're providing regular visits or telephone calls for a friendly chat. This is obviously fitting in with COVID, and we're finding now we're again beginning to do more face-to-face visits. And it's a friendly chat to share an interest, an activity to reminisce, support attending community services. There's a lot of people out there that need the confidence or need somebody to take them along to something, like the Onside cafes. If you're on your own and you haven't got anybody to go along with, maybe, one of our befrienders, we call them, maybe they can encourage people to go out, go along with them and make the use of the cafes, access online meeting points and informal support networks. We want to link with the other dementia services that we're running at the moment, but I'll mention that in a minute. We also, like Onside, like Hereford and Worcester, we signpost on to other dementia, to other organisations, including the Wellbeing Service at Hereford and Worcester, including Onside Advocacy, because we work with social prescribers. So we are working together, which is really good. Can I have the next slide, please? Right. What do people expect from us? Well, to be trusted, valued, and treated as an individual. When we get the referrals through, our coordinator, who is a lovely lady called Esther, at the moment, she has been contacting people by phone, but the idea is she will go and visit them in their own environment, where the client will feel so much happier within their environment, and we can pick up so much more about what's going on within their environment. She will just have a chat with the client and also with the carer, because it's as important, this service, for the carer, because we've seen throughout COVID a lot of people who've been more or less stuck in the house 24/7 looking after someone with dementia, which we all know is not an easy job. So we have to, our main thing is to make sure the carer is well as well. So we get support from a coordinator to ensure that the service is built round their needs and will be able to deal with any questions and concerns. All our volunteers are carefully selected and matched for the role. They're trained and supported and are all DBS checked. Access to support, advice and information for families, carers and friends, as well as signposting again to other organisations, is always available. Could we have the next slide? I'll just briefly mention the other dementia services we have. We're in the process of setting up 4 dementia meeting centres across Worcester and the Malvern Hills, which will be open 10 till 3, 1 day a week for the first year. Charges £25. We're starting with taster sessions on June the 21st. Trained staff and volunteers present in all of these. We're also looking to start a cognitive stimulation therapy, which is on Zoom online groups. And the other one would be referral to other dementia services who we've been talking to this afternoon. All of these things can be, sorry, can I have the next slide? These are our numbers that you can contact us on. This is specifically for the Dementia Community Support Service because we are run across 3 areas. But there is a designated email address for the Worcestershire ones, which is on here. And if anyone has any further, would like to see what else we do, obviously our website is updated as regularly as possible. So I think I've managed to do that as quick as possible, Jude. Okay, and I hope it was all right. I don't like doing this, as you can tell. Okay.
No, I'm not at all, and that was lovely. Thank you so much, and really, really excited about the prospect of your meeting centres opening.
Yeah,
can't wait to come down and have a visit.
Yeah.
Right, we have had a couple of questions come through. I think the first one was for Sonia. Someone was asking if we are still supporting people that we had contact with before the change within the contracts in 2019.
Well, I can't, the service, as I understand it at the moment since then, is we will keep a formal contact for 12 months. But obviously, we will never say to people, you can't contact us. If people want us, they can contact us and we'll respond to their needs. However, it's as with anything, you've got to manage the back door, otherwise you can't get people in the front door. So if people need much longer term support, then we'll look at whether it's appropriate that we carry that on, or whether they'd be better off supported by one of the other statutory services. So it's not supposed to be a long term. It's to help facilitate and support them to live with dementia, not, you know, provide an ongoing support or caring service. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Sonia. Questions for Lynn. Can you just go over again where your new meeting centres will be, please?
Yes, of course.
Also, if somebody who lives in Worcester but wanted to use one of your other your other meeting centres in Malvern, would that be possible?
Yes, yes. You can move across any that would be of any use whatsoever to you, and you don't have to keep the same ones. You could change them as long as we knew where you were going to go within the sort of month. So yeah, that's no problem at all.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I think it's perhaps just worth saying we're very privileged in Worcestershire that we've had access to the meeting centre programme and also the support from Worcestershire County Council to enable meeting centres to be set up. So there are quite a few popping up over the next 12 months. I heard recently that there's going to be one in Evesham as well, which is absolutely fantastic. We run one over in Brookwich Spa, and also one across the border in Hereford that will be opening up in July as well. So somebody has popped a question in for Sonia. Which agencies would you provide the onward support for people who wanted support further than we could provide?
Well, that would depend on their individual needs, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
And what their ongoing support needs were. So that would be down to each individual to be assessed and moved on.
Okay. And I think the last question was, where will the 4 centres be? And there's one in Malvern Link, one in Malvern, one over towards Tenbury, and one in Worcester. Is that right, Lynn?
Right, there's one in Malvern Link, which is run 2 days a week. There's one in AGK's office in Worcester, which is Bank Street. There's one in Dines Green, in the green room, and the Malvern Hills one is in Witchenford at the Nora Parsons Centre.
That's lovely, thank you. I think we've gone through all the questions that we've been asked, so unless anybody else has got anything that they want to get in at the last moment, thank you all very much for coming. And we'll be circulating the list of dementia services, the Directory of Dementia Services, for everybody that's attended today. And if there is anybody that wants the recording sent to them, just drop us a line and we can make sure that gets sent out to them as well. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.